Good morning. We welcome you all to day 2 of the NASSCOM DSCI Annual Information Security Summit 2013. The first session for today talks about clean pipe, role of telecom network in improving cyber health. To chair this, we have Dr. Kamlesh Bajaj, CEO of DSCI. May I please request sir to come up on the stage. I would also like you to welcome our esteemed panel. We have Mr. R.R.Mittar, DDG, Telecommunications Engineering Center, Department of Telecom. Mr. Debu Nayak, CISO, Huawei Telecommunications India. Mr. A.J. Vijayakumar, CISO, Tata Communications. May I please request the panelists to join us on stage? I now hand over to our chair, Dr. Kamlesh Bajaj.
About 45-50 people turn up for that. I am standing in for Dr. Gulshan Rai today. He called me late last night that there was an urgent meeting relating to security matters, so he had to be with the minister before the parliament session. So apologize on his behalf. This particular session, we have the entire panel, as you can see, with a slight change in place of Felix Mohan from Airtel. We have Vijayakumar from Tata Telecommunication Services. Other two panelists are as you can see in the booklet. The topic of this session is clean pipe and role of the telecom network in improving cyber health. And this is in the context, as you can all very well visualize and imagine, the clean pipe in the context of what comes to us as an organization or as an individual at home from the service provider. So telecom service provider. So it is this pipe which contains a lot of malware which reaches us. And in turn, if we are not clean with our systems in the organization, then we give it back to the pipe. The kind of malware which we may have on our systems, it goes to the telecom network, and through that once again to the organizations and individuals. So is there any way that a pipe can be kept clean all the time? Because India, as you might have seen some of the reports, is that we have the very dubious distinction of being the largest spam generator in the world recently. Our fifth one, top 5 spam generator in the world. Now this is very striking, especially because the internet penetration is relatively low in India today. Penetration, as you know, the numbers are very small compared to China and many other countries, US and other Western European. So which means that when we are trying to increase the internet penetration, then with the larger penetration, what would actually happen? So these are concerns as a nation we are concerned about, and this is a part of cyber security also, as to how to stop the malware from being circulating more and more. And as you know, malware carries a lot of attack vectors, Trojans, and we are hearing about APTs in the next room here. And the APTs are also carried as Trojans as part of malware. In fact, this morning there's a report about the NSA that the NSA was piggybacking on the advertising software. So on the advertising software, they had certain things put on that to be able to reach out and identify potential threats to their nation as part of the NSA. So you can clearly see that what all uses can the malware be put to. So cookies and so on, what they can be used to ride on. And then DDoS attacks and all which are generated by such things. While a lot of effort is being taken by the companies, by the global providers, MARG as an anti-spam group, and several others, but I think much more remains to be done. In the sense that with the proliferation and broadband coming more and more, the cyberspace is threatened largely by such kind of malware. So how do we handle that? And today's panel we will address. We have circulated the session brief in the booklet, and we have a very eminent panel here. As I said, Mr. Mittar from Department of Telecommunications, then Dr. Debu Ghosh from Huawei, and Mr. Vijayakumar, who is an ex-army officer from Tata Telecommunications. So they'll give the perspective of a telecom service provider and an equipment supplier, and what the government is trying to do, how they're trying to control directly or and through regulations. So with these words, I would like to start by inviting Mr. Mittar. Would you like to go at the end as regulation, or would you like to start?
As I think you can start.
Okay, let's start with the equipment first, and then the telecom providers, and then the government will have the say. So I'm requesting all of them to take about 5 to 7 minutes each, and then maybe another 5-7 minutes of discussion, and thereafter we will open the panel for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, good morning to all of you. I have privilege of getting the first speaker slot, because when you build the pipe, it is essentially the equipment is the key and major player when you build the pipe. So in that context, getting the first slot is reasonable for me, and then later we'll see how actually the operator will use the pipe. Then comes the regulator, how they will find out what kind of regulatory aspect will be put into the pipe. So having said that, we have been acting in different segments, starting from mobile device, building the backhaul, and then actually we are finding the end aspect of it, how actually your billing and everything solution will be controlled, and then finally you will find out that caters to the end-to-end approach of your cyber security. So what exactly starts mobile security is basically now the crux of the day. So in the mobile security aspects will be start, that will find each and every equipment that has to be placed in the mobile security aspect, that will cater to the clean pipe, and the pipe will be basically in the end or in the beginning. That depends on how actually you are placing all these equipments. We just follow the standard model provided by ITU standard X.805. We did an extensive analysis of this model, and then we find out how actually we will retrofit those model into our systems, and how actually we can provide the basic clean pipe approach. Suppose any spam is coming, what should be the control that I will apply to my equipment so that they will not proliferate those kind of spams. If you see the recommended model, what actually we are thinking, that it starts from the mobile terminal, it goes to the mobile network, then finally it comes to the home network. When the user finally comes to the home, he has to use his Wi-Fi, and all these factors that has to be also taken care. A lot of data nowadays are also being used by the user either in home or when he is traveling in the car also. So those kind of aspect, when you find out, we find out where and what extent you can apply the security, so that will take care of these things. we are not putting the security based on our own proprietary standards. We extensively use the standards created by ITU. There are thousands of people who have been examining those standards and they are coming out to this. You just see, this diagram will give a very clear picture. Starting from your mobile device, your base station that goes to your backhaul and then your OMS when you do the operations. Each and every stage we analyze what kind of security that has to be inbuilt into your equipment so that you will find out there will be no. Suppose you build a pipe and you started generating some of the inherent spikes inside the pipes. So that will also create a problem. If you see, I'll just give an example of E node B. Now it is used largely in the LT system. Or you can use your RNC, BNC, that will be used, already used in the system. How can I authenticate those kind of systems? How can I trust those kind of systems? We develop a mechanism called as signature CBB based method that is also catered to the 3GPP SA3 standard. What I am here giving the stress is not a single proprietary standard that we have embedded. What we did a extensive analysis of all the standards, then we fit where actually this can be valid, when actually you fit or you develop your equipments. So this signature CBB, what happens the moment you put your BSC or your E node B, that will say, hey, look at, I am the real BTS. And it sends back to your authentication AAA server, and that authenticates and find out, okay, the BNC is the correct BNC, what actually we are putting in the network. So those kind of inherent mechanism operator can leverage, and they can find out in the end-to-end aspect of that nobody can find out a fake BNC or BSC that can be installed in a particular system. You take the example of a backhaul system. So when you design this backhaul system, you have used the extensive protocols which has been used. We use 802.1x that is controls all the ports aspect of it. So that will also provide how actually you can take care of those data. So we have not implemented those kind of standard approach. Again, I am giving the stress that we are using those kind of approach based on the extensive standard method that we followed. We are not using any proprietary methods. And we serve to various kinds of T-Mobile, various telephone area. We have a lot of operator, tier 1 operators, we have already given those kind of solutions. We are also partnered to some of the key operators in India. And the 3G, 4G aspect will take up, definitely will give a lot of solution to them, and that will help them to build a clean pipe. And then we can find out that end user can leverage those kind of aspect of it. But that is not the end of that. What actually you are doing, whenever you are using the various applications, on top of those equipments, they play key major roles. How does it happen? So when a user uses an application and the application goes and talks to the application built in the equipments, so they should not have any malicious intents that will be pop up. So what exactly here we do, we take the GSMA application security and did an extensive analysis, and when we built the application on top of our equipments, we take those kind of factors into account. So by doing this, what exactly we do? We give a specialized and packaged kind of things so that any operator can leverage those kind of aspects when actually they use in their network. How do you do this? Yesterday you have seen there are a lot of discussion on secure coding practice and secure and all these things. I think that is very essential in the sense that first taking the approach of doing an end-to-end security, we see what extent we can take a small step, and that will solve the 90% of the security. I will give you an example. I was driving a car and my wife is sitting in the front of with me. My 3-year-old child is sitting behind in the car. Suddenly I put a brake and my kid fell down. Then my wife told, what happens to you? Why you suddenly put a brake and he fell down? Then I thought, I was thinking there is a channel showing that in 2018 China, some of the channel telling that in 2018 whole world will go down. Whole world will get smashed. So I was thinking of, if the whole world will go smashed, if I am in the aircraft, how can I get saved? So I am thinking to save whole world. Then my wife immediately told me, stop thinking about the whole world, think about your wife and children first. That is the step. You think about your code that you are implementing in your equipment, and that will cater to how actually you can take up those kind of security into account. And that will stop all these spams that will come to your network. We did extensive threat analysis based on the threat vulnerability assessment of HC method. Again a standard method, not a proprietary method. So that gives the idea how actually you can use those kind of equipments in various kind of stages that has to be used. Either it's a enterprise product or any kind of product that is going to be used in all these service providers. So we are here
Debu, I think we'll have to
wind up.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Yeah.
1 minute only.
So this is my last slide. Before wind up, I just want to say another thing, that in whole world, if you see what exactly we are talking about, 3 words, A, B, C. Anybody can guess what actually we are talking? A means advanced technology. That is what Dr. Bajaj has already in the whole day we have find out Internet of Things. B means it is a broadband. We are talking about mobile broadband. C means we are talking about the cloud computing. But what we are talking in India, A means astrology. Morning we wake up, see the paper, and then if it is not good, we don't work. B means Bollywood, if there is a time. C is, that is cricket. Thanks God today there is no cricket match. Otherwise half of the audience is not here. So why the objective of telling this thing is, we are thinking security because of some person like Dr. Bajaj, some person like Dr. Rai. There are people in India who are really taking our security into next step. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand to our chair. Because of them we are thinking security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debu. I will now request Colonel Vijayakumar to give his views as a telecom service provider.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Vijayakumar. I'm the CISO for Tata Communications. As you know, Tata Communications is a global data, voice and managed service provider. And perhaps you may not know that we have the largest network of submarine cables that carry traffic around the globe, twice around the globe. So if there's a cable cut anywhere in any part of the ocean, there is always a backup the other way. We also provide managed services, but now the topic today is the provision of clean pipe. As you know, internet traffic originates from some user and it ends at some other user. The challenge is that, as most of you know, many of these end systems are already compromised with the infection with bots. As you know, that bots are nothing but small pieces of Trojan-like software that inadvertently might get into your end systems, and these under the control of a bot herder who literally owns the botnet, and then these botnets are used to carry out DDoS attacks. Denial of service attack and DDoS are slightly different in the sense that denial of service attack originates from a single IP targeting another IP. In that case, the IP can be blocked in the routers. If there's a botnet made of millions of bots sitting in the endpoint systems, they are used to carry out DDoS attacks or distributed denial of service attacks. That's where we come in. Telecom service providers like us have managed services for DDoS detection and mitigation. Now what is done is, the core routers are enabled with net flow that go to collectors. Now these collectors collect sample flow from the routers, and if a customer has opted for this managed service, that particular IP's packets are sent to a scrubber in case of a DDoS attack, the scrubber basically takes out those packets which are malicious packets, and then the clean traffic is sent from the scrubber to the end system. This is the mitigation part of it. I suppose I've been able to explain the detection and mitigation part of it. This net flow basically is analyzed to see whether there is a DDoS attack. Now, the samples that are collected are typically in the frequency of 1 in 1000 or 1 in 10,000, depending on whether it's a Juniper or a Cisco router. And once the detection is done, the customer is asked whether he requires it to be mitigated. So it is sent to the scrubber device, which cleans the packets and sends a clean pipe to the end customer. Now, this is how a clean pipe is provided to a DDoS detection and mitigation service customer. Of course, even if you provide a clean pipe for the internet traffic, one must ensure that at endpoints, in a typical scenario, somebody uses a device in a corporate environment. The corporate must be getting clean pipe traffic to his systems, but the same laptop or a device is used at home, it gets contaminated. So just a point of caution that even if there's a clean pipe provided to the enterprise or the end systems, while in the corporate environment, it may not be totally clean, because next day when he comes back from home, if he connects it back to the corporate network, there is a chance of a contamination. Of course, the traffic from outside to inside will be clean, but your system can compromise your other subsystems or systems in your intranet, your local network. So this is what I have to say. I'll take on questions in the later phase when there's a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Vijayakumar. Next, Mr. R.R.Mittar, DDG from Telecom Department.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It was nice to listen to Dr. Debu first and then Colonel Vijayakumar, because once we are talking of clean pipe, so the developer of the equipment has explained to you how detailed and how a standardized approach they are following to ensure that the equipment that the operator gets is really robust in as far as various security threats are concerned. Secondly, the security has two approaches. So once the equipment is in the network, you still have to be careful. Then Colonel Vijayakumar explained that how by a sampling approach with the core routers, they're able to see what attacks are coming, and if enterprise or a customer has opted for a managed service, they're able to sort of mitigate that. Coming from the licensing perspective, I would like to talk about what is a pipe. In DOT, what probably is a pipe. DOT is issuing licenses for three broad areas. One is access services, that means your wireless services or wireline services. Second is the carrier services, that means the long distance, both national long distance and the international long distance. And third is the data services. So all your ISPs or the internet service providers, they provide services through the data services license. So whatever pipe per se is all the equipment which is inducted into the network by various service providers under three licensing regime. Of course, the licensing regime has now sort of converged and is now called a unified license, but still there are separate services that one can offer, and then the equipment also is different. In May 2011, 31st May to be precise, DOT issued a license amendment. Now I want to explain you what were the salient features of the amendment. First is that every organization, and that means all these licensees and their network, should follow a security policy, and that security policy has to be submitted to DOT. Second, that their networks should be subjected either to a self-audit or it should be audited by a certified auditor by ISO 15408 and ISO 27001. Third, the third provision in that amendment is that you have to do either a self-certification or you can make an independent team within the organization for the self-certification, the team within an organization, with that organization here means operator, has to be independent from like he should not be a part of operating or maintaining or planning the system. So there has to be a security team. Of course, there is also a provision that you can also get it certified from international labs, and of late, if you've read the newspaper, DOT is emphasizing that it has to be certified in a lab which is in India. There are no labs currently in India, but those of us who are following the newspapers, there are a couple of private sector entities, they are gearing up for certifying such a lab. Now the current date which is there is that from 1st July 2014, DOT expects that there will be a lab, and every equipment that is inducted into these three access services, data services and carrier services licensees, they will undergo this certification. Then there are a couple of other provisions in this amendment. We must realize, of course, the DOT term to all this certification is safe to connect. That means the equipment to be inducted has to be certified safe to connect. But as Colonel Vijayakumar explained, that even in any equipment that is certified safe to connect, it will receive lot of upgrades, it will receive lot of patches. We have to ensure that all the upgrades or the patches that the operator is implementing has to also be safe to connect. So that is a big area of concern. So what DOT is saying is that, of course, there is a provision for security audit by DOT also. So security has two aspects. One is that the equipment is certified safe to connect, and once the equipment is working and providing service, what is to be done. What also is ensured through this amendment of 31st May is that the operator themselves will do intrusion detection and report to the CERT or the licensor what they have detected. If they have detected any challenge through DDoS or malware, they have to then report. There are restrictions on who will be heading the security organization. There are restrictions in terms of that. There are restrictions or regulations for remote access. So what happens is that most of the operators will have obviously a maintenance contract. So how to, and the equipment provider may not really have a point of presence through their expertise at the premises. So there will be a remote access whenever there is a AMC problem reported. So there are regulations on that. So this is all about DOT's or a licensor's perspective, that security has two parts. Again, I'll repeat. The first is that the safe to connect equipment also will go, and then through the security audit and the reporting mechanism, there will be a check that the pipe remains clean as that. Another point I would like to bring about is, as Dr. Debu mentioned, there is the equipment developer follows a very standardized approach, because traditionally telecom equipment were quite following a standardized approach, because there were international bodies like IQT which and they were following all those standards, and as Dr. Debu explained, they are still following whatever is discussed thoroughly and debated there by a great battery of experts, I should say. So and the policies related to the secure software development life cycle, which was discussed yesterday also, one follows. So we can be reasonably secure that the equipment, telecom, the pipe will remain clean per se. But again, you cannot be taking everything to chance. So there is a provision for after the pipe is constituted and up and carrying traffic, you really monitor that through the provisions of the licenses. We can take questions. I think I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mittar. I think there are 2 points which have to be appreciated. First is, I was just talking to Colonel Vijayakumar, it's in the context of clean pipe, which is the objective. But then there's a clean pipe which the organization gets or a user gets. And from the organization and user standpoint, home user I mean, there the pipe itself is coming with malware or some attack vectors. So which may not be absolutely damaging from the viewpoint of a telecom network. But then they are damaging. They would like to have clean data at the organization level, at the individual level. So what role can the ISPs or telecom service providers play at that? Because much of the licensing conditions that you have mentioned, they are, I won't say one time, they're expected to have security on a continuous basis, but then they are sort of snapshots on a ongoing basis, a snapshot audit every month, 2 months, 3 months, that kind of a basis, whereas the requirements are on a continuous basis. So what would a clean pipe mean, coming to you, Colonel Vijayakumar, for the organization which is receiving the pipe from you, or a home user who is receiving it from you?
See, from an organization's perspective that is receiving the traffic, typically the organization must approach for a DDoS detection and mitigation service, in which case, as I explained, the traffic is scanned periodically, and then it is sent to a scrubbing device or a cleaning device, and then from that scrubber directly the traffic goes to the end customer. So from an organization standpoint, DDoS attacks are, and they are not preventable, but they are detected and they are cleaned. Now from the home user, very rarely a retail user, individual would apply for a DDoS service because there is a cost to that. However, that is not prohibited. You can still ask for a clean pipe to be delivered. Now, as far as the malware is concerned, again, there are technologies available. In addition to prevention of DDoS attacks, if there's a need to prevent a malware getting into the intranet through the internet, there are technologies such as virtual UTM or unified threat management devices which are deployed in the cloud, which perform the function of a firewall, an IDS and a threat management device, which is hosted in the cloud. So the traffic first hits that UTM device or virtual UTM device, and then it can be redirected to the intranet, your corporate network. So both from a DDoS perspective as well as a malware perspective, an enterprise can be protected. The same approach can be used for an individual or a retail user who sits at home, but it might be a bit expensive for an individual user. Typically the DDoS attacks, the endpoint traffic is to a /24 network, so it protects the entire subnet from a DDoS attack. And in the case of a virtual unified threat management device that is deployed in the cloud, again malware can be cleaned from there as well. But both these things do cost some money, so for better security we have to pay for it a little bit.
I would like to add here that Department of Electronics and Information Technology, DIT, they are in touch with some service providers, and what they want is that they are able to detect where the bots are, and the service provider actually controls the customer. So they are discussing a mechanism wherein the service provider sort of warns the end customer that okay, you are a bot and you need cleaning, and they're also trying to host a cleaning site so that the end customer is explained that you can go to this site which is hosted by DIT and get your endpoint cleaned. So that is one effort by DIT that I thought. Another point I would like to mention here is that there is a concept of managed security service provider. It is very well prevalent in US. The likes of big carriers like Verizon and AT&T and Sprint, they are doing MSSP service. Of course, that thing is not there, but probably not required, as Colonel Vijayakumar explained, that in any case they are offering that service.
In fact, Tata Communications offers managed security services for the last, at least for last 4, 5, 6 years. Just as AT&T and Verizon does, so does Tata Communications. We provide managed firewall, managed IDS, managed DDoS attack, which I mentioned, and managed virtual unified threat management system. Now, the point that Mr. Mittar was talking about, that the DOT or the IT is also taken up this task of warning the end systems of infections by bots. Now, they have given the task to telecom service providers. The only challenge which we find is that the list of infected devices runs into thousands. And you can imagine, perhaps every fortnight, if there's a list of, say, 2,000, 3,000 infected end systems, I mean, the information to the customers who have bought a certain service and on a continuously changing basis is quite a task. The challenge is real. The challenge is the endpoint systems are infected. So it is actually easier to protect it at the end device by a good antivirus or a unified threat management software or a device, rather than allowing it to get infected and then the information is the central agencies let us know that these systems are infected with bots, which is a challenge. They can be used for any kind of a spam or a DOS attacks, and asking the service providers to go and inform their customers, which is a bit of a solution, but is a roundabout solution. The correct one would be for the endpoint users to clean their systems, but this is a challenge. This is a challenge of you've got to create awareness. They have to have the tools. But what DIT has also done, good thing they have done is in the advisory, they have a list of downloadable software which can be freely downloaded by the end users and used to clean their respective end devices. So there is a whole list of some 10 to 15 sites and software which is available free in the internet, which is all well sort of approved sites. And the end users, I mean, you can even do the same thing in your homes as well, but depends on to what service provider you subscribe to for internet service. And if you approach them, then they would give you this advisory, and then you could download the software and get the systems clean. So if your organization remains clean and the endpoints remain clean when you use it at home, by and large, over a period of time, this environment would get, cleaned up through such prophylactic measures.
You see, I'll come back again to this point of top 5 spam generators in the world, and we happen to be there in the top 5. So which means that the overall pipe within the country is not clean. Of course, there's global connectivity, but then that is what is pervading, and we are giving it to the rest of the world also. So I'm only trying to address this issue of what can be done through collaboration and what can be done at the gateway level. You mentioned that Tata Communications is twice over the world is connected on your communication pipes. So in the landing stations in India, so at the landing stations when the gateways are there, what can be done at the national level at the gateway to see that we are not a dishonored nation as a spam creator, a generator? So what steps can be taken? Maybe at the equipment level again at the... Yeah, sure. I mean,
see, basically I will just make some points. Spam, take the example of a laptop. Whenever you open the various kinds of mail, how many of us know how to set a rule in my spam email filtering so that I can categorically say there is a high risk spam, less risk spam, that is my spam related to my business accounts. So user has to set these things. But when it comes to equipment in the gateway level, it depends on, again, boil down to the equipment providers, whether it's a unified threat management provided by some of the providers, whether it's a IDS, IPS, it is all provided by the equipment manufacturers. So what normally happens, the threat mechanism that has been inbuilt in those kind of systems are all nowadays are rule-based systems. When you have a specific rule you apply based on the IP packets coming and based on the header scanning, and then you can set those kind of things, and many things can be protected from the gateway level itself instead of going there. But the response mechanism is more important. How can we take the response mechanism? In our products, what we did, we have a product certified incident response management team. So what we did, whenever there is those kind of spam kind of thing, we'll find out the percentage, the accelerator level, what extent it will infect the traffic in the gateway level. So analyzing all these aspects, then we take the required measure and how we respond back. That is what critical aspects we consider in our product response management team. So when we work with, like Mr. Mittar has rightly pointed out, DIT has already given user the lot of things that user can take. But when it is happening at the gateway level, user have a little say to there. So it depends on, again, boil down to the equipment manufacturers, how quickly they respond along with the telecom service providers. So those kind of response mechanism we have put in place with different operator based on their positioning, and we can respond from 0.2 seconds to till 1 hour till 1 month, depending on the category and the kind of response that will generate in that level.
Yeah, the point about what Dr. Bajaj mentioned about getting the traffic cleaned at the gateways, at the points of entry into the country. The challenge that is, the traffic that flows is in terms of terabits or terabytes, and to have an intrusion detection system kind of thing deployed is currently, there is no market device in the market that takes on that kind of a load to do that kind of IDS, because IDS does some kind of a signature based or anomaly based analysis, and no device currently supports that kind of terabytes of data flow. So this is, I look at it like this, that it's like we are basically like the airline providers that carry data from one end to the other, the long distance, national long distance, international long distance, and internet service provision. Whereas the last mile connection providers like the mobile operators or the BSNL, they are like the people who run the buses and the taxis to the airports. So it's like saying that the airport service provider has to ensure the health of all the people. So it is a bit kind of a difficult and a challenging task. However, from a national perspective, it is important. In this connection, I'd like to mention that the infrastructure of a telecom company is as much a national infrastructure as a corporate infrastructure. Let's take the IT infrastructure of Infosys or say Accenture. If the systems get compromised, only that company or that corporation, suffers the impact. But if a telecom service provider core network is compromised, the nation also gets compromised. So therefore, there is a dual challenge of not only protecting from a corporate perspective, which is important, but also protecting it from the national perspective. And the telecom infrastructure is a strategic national asset. And therefore, to keep the pipes clean is a challenge. To customers of managed services, they are provided. But as a whole, to provide for the entire traffic that is flowing through these national long distance or international long distance network at the gateways is a challenge from a technical perspective as well as an operational perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Mittar.
Yeah. Coming to the clean pipe issue that we are discussing, Dr. Debu rightly said that there should be some kind of a spam filter setting. These are the best practices the end customer can do. But what I think is that the normal telco could also step in, because ultimately if a spam is flowing, there also, let's say if a 1 gig bandwidth is there and 80% is spam, then quite a bandwidth is a waste for them. So there is a definite incentive for telco to really get going. Now coming to the solutions, Colonel Vijayakumar rightly said that there is nothing like for a terabit. There are solutions coming in the form of what is normally technology parlance, it is called a DPI, Deep Packet Inspection. But one must remember that DPI devices, they can slow down the line speed. Ultimately, you will have to scan everything. So you'll end up slowing the line speed. And secondly, no government will immediately allow a deep packet inspection, because deep packet inspection ultimately means that you are inspecting traffic at the application level. So you are going into the content. So there will be a big privacy concern if DPI technology in any garb is to be allowed. But I agree that the pipe, though we must agree that the pipe when it was created was clean, when it was in operation it is not clean. So something has to be done by a collaborative effort of telcos as well as the end customer education per se. Yesterday there was a very good point by one of the speakers that this education must right now percolate down to the school level so that the people are aware. So I think that will really solve part of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mittar. I have one more question, but I'll put it on hold and open the floor for your comments and observations here. Can you please get the mic here? Please identify yourself and the query that you have.
Yeah, I'm Srinath from APNIC, and my thing is that, as far as the clean pipe is concerned, if you want to take all application, malware and DDoS attacks into the picture, a service provider is going to be very difficult. For a service provider, it's going to be very difficult to do it, because the only thing that, there are best practices that we need to put in place. For DDoS, we can always find a solution to do mitigation. Most of the providers are, I think, if they have a DDoS mitigation solution put in their network, they can identify and they can signal the traffic easily enough to a good extent. There's never going to be a point where you're not going to be under attack. You're always going to be under attack from a DDoS perspective. But spam and other malware and kind of stuff, they are application level stuff. So a provider will have a lesser role to play in that case. One best practice that you can control as far as spam is concerned is that you can just block out SMTP from the sources where you have people who can send out spam. So one example is, let us say a mobile subscriber, his system is infected, or somebody is sitting at home who's got a DSL connection, who's got an SMTP server, that he's sending spam. You can block out the SMTP port 25 on the inward facing at the provider level. That actually helps to control spam to a very good extent. So these, in fact, some of these best practices, if put in place, can actually make a very big difference. Since I deal with network security, I'm
he's brought on many points actually. The point is he talked about how DDoS can be mitigated, can be detected and mitigated, but malware detection mitigation, because of the volume of traffic and the latency involved, is difficult. But he's talking about spam, as he rightly said, rather than at the service provider, telecom service provider, it's basically about good practices. If it's an enterprise, there are very good systems available like IronPort or things of that nature, which are very good mail security, and most of the spam comes as mails, spam mails. So you have devices like IronPort and so on for spam detection and spam quarantine and stuff like that. And as he also said that certain ports closure at the endpoint systems will also prevent. So these are basically about hygiene at all levels. Hygiene at the service provider, by the user, by the enterprise, and so on.
I'll just quickly add, FTP operates in port 25. SMTP operates in different port. And what actually happens, you can use SMTP-S, that is a new protocol developed by RFC and IETF forum, and that has a lot of provisioning of spam that can be easily filtered.
Yeah, the gentleman there.
Yeah. I'm Vijayakumar. I'm from HDFC Bank. I'm coming from a domain of handling fraud risk management. I'll just give a different perspective of where I'm coming from, especially on the transactions, which is payment transactions which is flowing through either a card or a net banking, various types of payment transactions which is going through today. Thanks to regulator, every single payment touch point, which is RBI, made it authentication. So what naturally, where it moved is, every banking industry or financial institutions moved into OTP, which is called the mobile password, which is a one-time password which is sent to the mobile device. as the highest form of authentication today in the country. You take anything for that matter today, mobile OTP is the highest form of authentication. So what fears us, what we feel as a threat is how does this OTP get compromised tomorrow, either through a spam or a malware, because everything is moving to the customer's device, which is a mobile instrument. So we foresee a big threat in terms of a malware residing in that device, which might not go to the customer, it might go to a different entity where there'll be a lot of frauds which will percolate in that domain. So I don't know, I'm sure it might not be at an instrument level, but at a regulator or at the telco service provider, how are we seeing this as a threat? So for example, Mr. Mittar mentioned about DPI, deep pocket inspections, which will intrude into privacy. Instead of doing it across, can they do it only for certain message types like this mobile OTP where they can inspect and come back saying there is a malware residing, do we need to send it, or send the feed back to the financial institution saying, probably it might be a challenge for the telcos. Can that be reverse feeded into a banking domain where they can communicate to customers saying you might be secure in terms of securing your device, or some kind of channel between the telcos or the service providers with the banks to share. He said, Mr. Vijayakumar mentioned about the thousands of customers who have been infected today with malware which they are identifying on their pipe. So is that somewhere a sharing mechanism which can work, or as a reverse feed to the banking industry where they can be careful or try to educate the customers to have a secure device, or have some kind of monitoring in place for such customers where we transmit the one-time passwords? I just putting it to the panel.
Good questions, and the concerns are genuine. So I think you mentioned 2 points. One is about the compromise of that one-time password. In fact, recently, a few months back, RSA's the token ID that got compromised. Because if you really look at it, what's happening is that 6-digit one-time password is basically a random number generator. And all these random number generators are pseudo-random number generators. Once you get the seed of the generating to start with, you can just recreate the random number sequence. If the system that originates this sequence is actually a real random number generator, not a pseudo, there are methods to do that as well, taking from the stochastic processes in nature, like let's say rustling of leaves or something of that kind, or the sounds that get created when you touch keyboards, not the frequency, that is predictable. So if the random number generator is based on a real random number generator, not a PRNG or a pseudo random number generator, that could be one where it could be compromised. Because if the machine word which runs this random number generator and passes it onto the customer's mobile device, if that can be combined, that is being shown to be compromised. So that's one challenge that we see here. The second point is about the customers whose systems are infected. It's a bit difficult because from a telecom service provider, the customers who are of a telecom service provider and the bank's customers, the sets are two disjoint sets, or there is no kind of segregation of the bank customers from telecom customers. So let's say Tata Communications gets 20,000 infected systems, say in a month, infected endpoint devices. Now these 20,000 may subscribe to 50 different banks. So ideally at a national level, because this information actually comes in from certain, the endpoint infection systems. And so that, if they can be sent to RBI or some sort of a financial central monitoring unit, and then they in turn tell the banks, so banks can filter out their own customers and send it to them. I don't see how telecom customers in turn feed it back to, rather than feeding it back to certain can send to telecom as well as to banking central units, which can in turn inform the respective banks, will have to filter their customers and inform their customers. But challenge is, the only way the traffic from the information is going to the customers or the end devices, but whether they get cleaned up or not is not sure, because every month the number of infected devices, I think, is only going up, it's not going down. So that is a big challenge, or at least it will remain static.
I'll just, Dr. Bajaj, I will just quickly add, there is a called IDRBT, Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology, which is under RBI purview. And RBI, this institute is trained all the banking institutes. I have privilege of working there as a security expert for 3 years and for setting the Indian financial network security aspects. So they, OTP and all these things, they quietly published all these things in their website. For your reference, you may go through there, and they follow the Visa standard of that what the random number they are generating, that is testified, and standard random number generator is not like the random number generator where you can take the seed from your system and generate the keys. So they have taken a safe standard of the city or Visa form, and there actually you will find a lot of advices they published, and you can take reference of those sites. And IDRBT, I think, is doing a lot of course for banking institutes also.
Hi, I'm Pradeep from First American India Private Limited. I have a question for Colonel Vijayakumar. You were talking about detection and mitigation of DDoS type of attacks within your pipe, by passing it through a scrubber. Now, do you see a role being played by, or probably you see some, technologies which help you in building up some intelligence over a period of time, or a database which can help you in building up some sort of, creating a score database which can help you in reducing such type of traffic? Considering the fact that you've already mentioned a constraint that you handle terabytes of data, which may not be possible, but don't you think that this might really help? And there's another question, if you, Mr. Bajaj, if you can allow me to ask Mr. Mittar. You're talking about DOT supporting or probably helping building certain sites which can be used by end users to scan their systems for bots. Now, do you see any concerns expressed by end users related to privacy? Because people are becoming more and more aware to privacy issues. People think 10 times before submitting even a sample to antivirus solution providers. So,
yeah, I'll answer the first question in full and the second one partly. See, the distributed denial of service attacks originate from not just hundreds or thousands. They actually originate from in the range of 10,000 to a million bots infected systems. And these botnets are actually owned by criminal gangs. And these are, some of the bots are what is known as polymorphic bots. They in turn can modify themselves by downloading a piece of code, and they can change their nature dynamically. They can change their command and control servers also dynamically. So bots are evolving very, very fast. And so although we can detect and mitigate botnets, whether to create a database of the origin of these is a challenge because of the dynamic nature of these, polymorphic bots and the bot herders and the criminal gangs that operate and sell these botnets for a price. I happened to attend the conference on the underworld economy 2 years back in Interpol headquarters in Lyon. And in fact, the whole session of 3 or 4 days was only on these criminal operators who literally operate, the economy is as big as the actual economy. I mean, it is a shocking thing that the economy of the underworld, which deals with stolen credit cards, and so all these bots, infection of bots to create DDoS attacks to hurt somebody for a fee. So they were mentioning about if they want to kill a competitor, say as an online sales site, okay, during the Christmas season, they start getting hit with botnets. Now, unless he realizes that he's hit with a DDoS attack, he doesn't know. He just thinks that my systems are slow, and customers, they try the site, they just give it up thinking that something is wrong with the site. Actually, the botnet owners they get paid by the competitors to hit these sites and get that, the kind of slowing the network, slowing the site. So, to create a database of the originating sources of attack in a DDoS attack is like creating the world's entire database of all the users, and these are continuously changing. Some people clean their system, some new guys will get infected, so the database will be dynamically, and who is going to manage this database? I think we cannot prevent it as it exists today, but we can detect it and mitigate it.
We'll have to. I think Mr. Mittar will make a statement, then we will close the session.
Yeah, coming to your last second question, whether the ordinary customer would have a privacy concern. Actually, this exercise is in the initial stage, wherein the deity is approaching service providers to first give a warning through maybe a bill or through SMS, and advising them to really visit their site for the cleaning. So we don't anticipate any privacy concern there, because ultimately the end user also knows that, there's nobody who is not a victim in its own right. So there should not be any concern of privacy for that.
I think as you can see, the role of the ISP is going to expand. The clean pipe from the service providers, telecom service providers, is unlikely to happen, notwithstanding whatever Debu has said or Colonel Vijayakumar has said. So the role of ISPs, unfortunately, as intermediaries is going to expand. They are being held accountable for copyright violation, taking down of content, content regulation. So to that we will add the clean pipe also. With these words, I'd like to thank the panelists for an excellent presentation and involving all of you in the discussion. Please join me in giving a big hand.